Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, the board, Mr. Amar, Mr. Saleh, for giving Huawei a chance to come and present what Huawei has on the solutions what we have. So far, most of the audience would be knowing about Huawei is a career company, a telecom company. We are very much into IT data center solution business. We are very much into big data analytics. We are investing a lot of money on R&D to make sure that we are following the trends, the key trends which are happening in the market now. I am Sushant. I would be presenting the big data solution and how it is going to be applied on the smart grid solution. Before I jump into the presentation, I would like to understand the importance of data, what we have in our life on day-to-day basis. One of the example, while having a lunch, I've seen the buffet without the name tags. It is very difficult for us to pick up what we want to eat, what is the right thing to eat. So it's a data which is missing. It's like a salt is missing in your food. So rightly said by my colleague, a meaningful data at the right time, it is very important. Let's talk about something about data, what people say about data in terms of when we talk about big data. We think about a massive data storage. Yes, big data is all about massive, huge amount of storage which is collected from various sources. We talk about analyzing the data in terms of what is the right data for me, what is required for me, and can be helpful for me. How to manage the data. And to manage the data, to run the data, we need a huge, massive computing to make sure that the big data can happen. Let's talk about what the analyze guys are talking about, like Gartner. We talk about varieties of data. Yes, we talk about 60 to 70% of data which is unstructured data, if you look at the analysis which is made by Gartner. We're talking about the amount of growth which is happening on day-to-day basis, where the data has been generated by various source of engines, and they need to be rapidly processed faster. The volume of the data which has been happening, Mr. Saleh helped me out to cover this slide where he said Facebook is generating 2.5 petabytes of data every day. So if you look at, if you will read each and every message of Facebook for 1 second also, it will take 5 years of time to complete the whole Facebook data. The amount of data which has been generated on YouTube, what is the value which brings this data to us, and how big data brings that value to us? So we'll be talking about in few slides. This is the two main sources from where the data have been collected. One is from the people like us who are on daily basis using our handphones, tablets, laptops, internet, and we are trying to capture the amount of data. So one of the recent example for an organization where we're talking about we talk about 2.9 million emails flow every second. So that is amount of massive data what we're talking about today. We're talking about 50 million tweets. I don't know how many people will be now online on Twitter talking about the sessions which is happening on and tweeting about it. 50 million tweets per second, what we're talking about, sorry, per day what we're talking about. So if you will go to read these tweets, it will take at least 5.5 years to finish all the tweets. The another area where the data have been generated is machines. So every machine now, if you look at, they generate the data from a log perspective, from data perspective. Let's take one of the example of the Boeing machine. The Boeing machine generates data every 3 minutes. A flight of 6 hours, it generates somewhere about 240 terabyte of data. So if machine is generating 240 terabyte of data altogether, and how this data can be going ahead in the future, we're talking about exabytes of data would be required, and storage would be required to process this data. So cloudification is one of the area where we're talking about a huge step of Huawei and how we will be going to do that. How we do a cloudification of an IDC, how we bring up the whole infrastructure which is required to manage this data together. These are the areas where the industry classification guys talk about why they need big data and where they will be using the big data altogether. So in the utility sector, if you look at, we need the data from an operation analysis perspective, from power dispatch, from smart grid perspective. Look at from a management perspective, they need data to do faster decision analysis. They want data for doing an MIS report. They wanted data to make sure that the performance of the company, the performance of an organization is growing the way it has been planned to. Supervision area. Supervision area is which is more required from an manufacturing unit perspective or from any point of factory unit where you want the environmental protection to be monitored, where you want the network to be monitored, where you want your pipelines to be monitored properly. Specialty specific to the areas where like seismic zones, satellite, radars, or IoT kind of areas where you need huge amount of data which is unstructured, which is available from that side. Internet of Things, we discussed about internet, how email flows are happening. And you can look at 60% of unstructured data which is available in the internet. So what we do with this data today, how it's helpful for an organization like us, and how we can grow with this. So we talk about a business value which comes out from this data and how big data helps you to get this business value. So a research has said that a customer-centric organization is a successful organization. Any organization which is more focused on customer-centric, they are more focused towards their business and they're growing day by day. If you look at, if I have a customer insight, so big data helps you to give a customer insight in terms of what is a customer need on day-to-day basis. You can do a precise marketing specific to your customer requirement, specific to what you have. You can improve your experience of your customer, of your business, and you can meet your programs with regards to retaining your customers and your business. This is from a business value creation perspective. Ecosystem enablement helps you to do proper marketing, proper sales in terms of to understand what and how to do and what we need to sell. Process optimization, this is more for a grid kind of a requirement where we're talking about of how you want to optimize your process with specific to in terms of campaign management, or if you want to look at from where would be the failure or preventive which can be taken care before the failure happens. So if you look at IT, ICT contributes 80% to any industry to make sure that the innovation happens. So if you look at 80% of the innovations are coming from ICT. So rightly said by my colleague, all of the components, including IoT, AI, which is not available now, it is not an innovation. It has already been done 10 years back. So we're talking about of how your smart grid can leverage on these IT components and how they can become more innovative. So we talk from a cloud computing perspective, where we have the whole infrastructure, which helps you to use your power in terms of you can save your data, you can manage your data. We talk about the IoTs of the stuff, which helps you to sense information and get you the information. We talk about a big data platform, which helps you to optimize the data, to process the data, to make it faster available to you. And we talk about the AI, which sits on top of it, which does machine learning and do an automation in terms of to understand what data is going to be helpful for you as a consumer or as a producer. So these are the 4 use cases what we have captured. So the first use case what we're talking about of is new energy power generation prediction. So big data helps you to predict the power generation capabilities and the return of investment time-to-time basis. One of the example I will be going to share you in the next slide, how the wind turbines can help you if you have a big data in place, analytics in place. Let me quickly take to the second slide. So this is the case study what we have did, where we're talking about a specific to a company which is a wind system, Denmark. They're talking about of 43,000 wind turbines are installed in 65 locations. Now, what is the biggest challenge of installing these wind turbines? The main challenge is to collect the information about, to consider to choosing the placement of the wind. Where you want to place it, what is the condition of that area, whether you have enough wind to take care of it, what is the temperature of that area specific to, what position it should be placed. So the placement of turbines are very important to make sure that you get a right investment in terms of to take your return outs. This is a company where they have this amount of stuff. We're talking about of generating 2.5 petabyte of meteorological data what they have. By having big data, the project benefited in terms of to optimize their placement, to rightly place the turbines at the right place, and the identification of the placement turned out from weeks to hours. Going back to the second area, load forecasting. Load forecasting is one of the major requirements nowadays, where one of my electric company was talking about how you can balance your current base load and how you can distribute the load, making sure that it is load balanced and the consumer is getting a right load to you. So we're talking about one of the another case study we're talking about of how you can forecast the load, how you can make sure that the user get the right consumption, and the planning of having new grids is required, or you want to optimize your existing grids, how you will decide that. So let me take you to one of the case study which we have done it on that. So this is a case study of ADF. What we are trying to see that there are 35 million smart meters have been deployed, and these smart meters are giving you every 10 minutes 1.8 trillions of records, which is equivalent to 600 terabytes of data. What do you do with this data which is coming from the smart meters? Okay, so the biggest challenge is itself to mine the data, to keep the data, to manage the data. So by bringing big data platform, how it has helped them out. So this is just a structure of a big data, how the big data will be looking like. So if you look at, you have a data layer where the smart meter are collecting the data. We're talking about a data management layer where we're talking about of the big data platform, which is helping you to have a distributed file system, taking the data and doing a data mining. The data mining can be happen by machine learning, or data mining can be happen on a computer on a real-time basis, and then to give an application layer. And these are the layers you can choose based on your services layer which you like to have it. So here we're talking about a high-speed processing of load curve, trend prediction, spot pricing, distributed energy grid connections. So these are the 5 areas of application layer, helps the customer to understand how much they have consumed from what they have produced. Let me take you to one of the example of the fault analysis. So fault analysis is nowadays, it's becoming a big challenge day by day. You have huge pipelines spread across, the energy is flowing from kilometers of it, and it is very difficult for you to go to every corner to look at where the corrosion is there, where there is a damage, or whether it's a predictive analysis can be taken care or not. Nowadays, thanks to IoT and thanks to the technology which has brought up the new sensors, which helps you to do an analysis and make sure that your device and your transformer is available before the downtime. So let me take you to one of the example of it. So this is a real case study what we have did in China to the second largest electric generation company. We're talking about of the transformer running in a normal state. This shows about how the transformer is being changed. And when you get an alarm in terms of the transformer will become a faulty, and how you can do a predictive maintenance with regards to the fault before it goes out of service. So we talk about of consumption. One more area of consumption where we're talking about a VIP customer short-term power consumption estimation. So first to understand what is my consumption, before that to understand what is my production, and then to make sure that who is my preferred customer, where I have to give preference to all about it. So looking at, this is analysis what we have done based on where this company has made sure that they have the data in place, and this has helped us to give them the 4 layers of it, where we're talking about load influencing model, power consumption analysis, short-term and mid-term, which helps them to understand and estimate the load to give it to the right source. Let me quickly take you to the other areas. This is, we're talking about machine learning, Nest thermostats. We talk about which gives you more information at a consumer level by looking at the consumer behavior. When the consumer uses AC, when the consumer uses the heater, when the consumer is using lights, based on that, it makes sure an automation specific to that, which saves a huge amount of power and resources. Let me quickly take you to the Huawei big data story. So Huawei Smart Grid, the solution what we have, we're talking about the platform, which is Huawei Fusion Insight. Fusion Insight is based on the 3 platform, which is massive parallel processing database, Hadoop, Spark, and Storm. So these are the platforms where Huawei Fusion Insight is based on. And this does the mining of the data. And this is the infrastructure layer which Huawei does an end-to-end from this layer to this layer. Okay, on the upper layer of application, we are partnered with the ISP partners to do it very jointly. These are the set of the data which has been generated from your applications, like SCADA, MDM, call center, DMS, and this can be used for mining and to give a better input in terms of what has been required. Let me talk about the Huawei investment, what we are doing. We have 15 R&D centers across the world, out of which we have dedicated six R&D centers specific to big data. We're talking about of more than 18,000. Sorry. We talk about of more than 18,000 employees, out of which we're talking about of 1,500 scientists dedicated for big data. And overall technology, if you look at, we talk about of 8,000 employees only dedicated for R&D. So this is R&D investments what we have done across the globe, looking at the centers like India, Europe, Canada, and China. And this is the area which we're talking about where we are, the strategy is talking about the core from down till the big data analytics. It is an end-to-end Huawei. And the upper layer is an application layer which can be applicable for you. So Huawei AI, big data is a AI-enabled big data, which we talk about. So these are the innovation chipsets what we have. The chipsets which talk from a CPU and a GPU perspective. We have the machines which take care of the CPU and GPU in the same machine, where you can do analytics as well as you can do data streaming at the same time. We talk about the ASIC chipsets, which is our own proprietary chipset of Huawei, which helps you to make more useful of a graphics. This is the big data platform. On top of it, we talk about the common services which are applicable. And these are the use cases specific to logistic, specific to call center, specific to image recognition and OCR, how big data can be useful for you. This is a case study what we have did in 2015 and 2016 in China. This is for State Grid. So State Grid, the challenge was the internal company itself was not having that amount of skills and capabilities to understand the data what they had. The second challenge was the state was bringing a new competition of electricity distribution company. So they had these two challenges, and they were unable to see how they can cope up in the market. By getting the solution, it helps them out to get all the data what they have, and how the data make them a customer-centric organization to make the customer benefit. And based on this model, they were fulfill their customers, and they were able to analyze the smart meter data reading and abnormal consumption of it. This is the graphical report of the resident consumption analysis and industrial consumption analysis. One of the report which I shown you about the predictive analysis was again part of the same company. So this is the way what they can look at, how the user has consumed and how much we have produced and how we can manage it. So by this slide, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, both of you, for a very informative presentation. As we have seen, mainly the big data are like the basis or the feedstock or the fuel for all other systems like artificial intelligence and then analytical softwares. So they represent the core of anything else. They made everything else more accurate in terms of deliverables. I would like to get both of you's views in terms of the electricity sector now in Oman. You know that we generate a lot of data on a daily basis and on a monthly basis, and probably we are not yet in a mature stage to harness all the the benefits of this data. What would you think, from your own experience, will be the building blocks for the electricity sector to start utilizing this technology, knowing that we generate data, but maybe we are not yet in the big data environment yet? So if we can start with you, John.
All right, so when you think about the data strategy, you think about the objectives. What do we want to achieve? So we think about what kind of goals that we want to accomplish in a timely manner. So I want to start with my customer. So we already have VIP customers. We have factories. How can we serve them more? How can we ease their life by giving them a predictable amount of money that they need to pay versus their current consumption? And to be able to do that, we need to get back a little bit. Is our data centralized somewhere? Do we have, again, a single source of truth where we can query so that we can give this data to our customers? Now we are really, really careful about the spending in Oman. I'm seeing this in each and every organization. So to be able to optimize our cost and not affect the service, but actually get more and more benefits to the country and to the citizens and everybody who lives in Oman, I need actually to understand what kind of data that we have. So a data assessment and analysis needs to be in place where we understand what kind of data that we have, and then we need to think about what kind of repository that we need to create for this data. So matching the ultimate goals or the strategy goals that we need to achieve in timely manners with an actual plan that we can actually start with by having some simple things like, do we have a data warehouse? Is our companies, because of course I know that NAMA Group consists of a lot of companies, it's not just a single company. So when the board members meet together and they start discussing the data, is it a single source of data or everybody would have his own data? Because to reach to that state where everybody is speaking about the same data, there is a lot of collaboration that needs to take place. There is a lot of data sources that needs to be consolidated. And then we need, from a data perspective, we need to think about our data strategy. So we have a lot of database administrators in Oman. But what's the future? Do we have data scientists in Oman? We need to start seriously collaborating with the education system about the market needs. That data scientists are very important. We need to start qualifying the people who are already working on the data so that they can be our eyes and ears when it comes to leveraging the science, harnessing our big data so that we can get into meaningful results to go to actionable items.
Okay. Mr. Sushant?
In my opinion, if you look at, I'm very new to Oman. It's just like 1 month has passed in Oman. Looking at Oman, the infrastructure is growing from everywhere. I was talking to the CEO yesterday about the growth perspective of having new malls coming up. We're talking about of recreation of the infrastructure, what we have currently. It's specific to schools are getting smart, the hospitals are getting smart. You need more and more information which have been gathered. And Oman has, if you look at from a prediction perspective, it's a huge growth what Oman is doing. So from an energy perspective, what we are producing today and what is my prediction for next 5 years or next 10 years, if I predict that, if I know that the energy what we are producing, it is going to be take care of my next generation of next 10 years, or do we really need to invest on that more smart grids or more plants to be coming up? This is a very important information which is required right now at this stage to make sure what we have and what is our next 10 years with regards to the prediction. So based on that, big data will be playing a very important role for Oman as a region to make sure that what we have and how we are growing, what is our growth areas, what we're talking about, and how we can able to be in a position to supply the energy to the consumer, to the industries, and to the organizations who are going to be invest from outside. Are we going to fulfill them or not? So okay. I think it's the right time to look about big data. It's the right time to evaluate a big data solution.
Thank you very much. There is a question from the streamlining to Mr. John. Do we need to hire more of data scientists in the near future?
Interesting question. So yes, hiring can be an option for us when it comes to the big data, but we need to look into the long-term plan. What kind of resources that we really gonna be relying on? Of course, we can start by hiring right now, but we need to start also building the local capability. I've personally met a lot of great DBAs in Oman. A lot of them had actually started to slowly and gradually learn about what's machine learning, how can we harness the data. So if there is a plan or an immediate need for a data scientist, yes, all of the big vendors already heavily investing in data scientists. I would reflect on Microsoft on that. So whatever kind of a project that we start, it's a learning path. So it's not just about delivering the project, but about building the local capability so that they can self-run the project in the future. So that you not only reflect on the energy market, but on the overall market of Oman. So building the capability is a very important aspect having the kind of DBAs like, this is a very simple question that we can ask internally, who is really interested in learning about big data and machine learning? And definitely you would get an answer, because this answer is not only going to reflect on the industry, but it would also reflect on the career growth and career path for each and every database administrator. So right now, this is the new currency. I need to be there.
Thank you. We can take some questions from the audience, if there is any question. There is one up there.
Thank you, speakers. I have actually one question. What steps can the electricity subsidiaries take to choose the right data storage solution? And how can they confirm or ensure that the data are protected and retrievable? Thank you.
Hello. Looking at the data storage, so if you look at data storage, nowadays we have varieties of storage products which are available for storing the data. The question is what data needs to be stored and how frequently it needs to be accessed. If it is a data specific to structured data, then there are block storages available in the market to help you out to write the data on a faster way, which are now called as all-flash storage. We're talking about SSD drives, NVMe drives, which helps you to write the data faster and to read the data faster. In a scenario like electricity as a vertical, where we're talking about of data which is very passive, which is very unstructured data. So when you want to write an unstructured data, which can be come in a form of from a sensor generating a data, or it can come from an application like SCADA, which would be generating a data. Here you need a storage which could be a scale-out in architecture, where we can able to scale the storage whenever it is required without any downtime. And it is massively available in terms of to not only to store the data, but also to read the data fastly in terms of whenever it is required. With regards to security of this data, nowadays you'll find the storage are coming with encrypted drives, which are itself secure in terms of any manual interruption, or in terms of any data security, what we talk about, we have cyber security which can be taken care of it, on top of it. So today we look at data can be stored easily, widely, massively, and can be secure.
Okay, any other question from the audience?
This is actually more of a reflection than a question. All this talk about, artificial intelligence and big data is exciting, but at the same time, it makes me feel slightly uncomfortable because of the number of data breaches that have been happening worldwide. And Europe only implemented the data regulation agreement in May this year. So if Europe implemented it in May, where are we as Oman? And some countries like the United States, their police departments are using algorithms to identify a risk score for a person on how likely they are to become a criminal based on big data. So they're not a criminal, but using big data, how likely are they to become a criminal? So my question is, in Oman or in the GCC, what efforts are being made currently to regulate big data?
That's a very interesting question. Thank you for that. Fact, more than 80% of the data breaches that are happening worldwide are happening from internal breaches. The rest, it's either a leak of a security measurement or a personal flaw. So if you really think about the data breaches, yeah, it really makes us uncomfortable. However, when it comes to the big data and having this applied in very critical places where we have artificial intelligence doing facial recognitions and doing sentiment analysis and deciding what's going to be the best or the next action for a human being, yeah, it is a little bit scary. But at the same time, I need you to look at the causality. Why are we doing this? It's just about using the technology for greater good. And I agree with you. Vodafone, for example, we had them on the stage covering. We have a very big case study with Vodafone that 80% of their call center worldwide is now handled by an artificial intelligence bot. So whenever you are trying to call them to complain or open a case, you would get an artificial intelligence bot. Is it scary? Yes. But can you imagine the amount of time, effort, and money and manpower that had been saved, now the call center is completely the same people who used to work and answer the regular complaints are now working on something completely different. So let's talk about marketing campaigns. Let's talk about having more and more revenue by adding these guys to the telesales. So think of it like everything would come with its own pros and cons. Yes, but AI, big data, is something that we are adapting for the greater good of everyone. If anybody had came to me 10 years back and say, hey, John, you were gonna have a project with one of the companies to analyze 10 petabytes of data, which is 10,000 terabytes of data, so that you can get a decision that would save money to an energy company, I would tell him, all right, I need to have $100 million investment. These days, by leveraging the cloud computing, machine learning, the right algorithms, I would be easily doing that. And from a data storage perspective, because it's really related, I'm really afraid about my data. I don't really want my data to be jeopardized. Let's think about the data classification. What kind of data that needs to stay on-prem, and what kind of data that I can actually throw in the cloud? Because how many social apps that we are currently use, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of these are cloud services, right? A lot of data is actually out there in the market.
So there are points of concerns, and they could be a risk as well, but they are not showstoppers. Okay. Yes, definitely there would have to be regulation, governance, in terms of privacy, security of data. There is talk that the revenue of big data in 2018 is expected between $40 to $50 billion.
$44 billion.
Yeah. So how do you see the maturity or the growth within the region, the GCC countries? How prepared are we in this area to harness this technology? Mr. Sushant?
So if you look at GCC as a region, from technology adaptive perspective, we can say that yes, they are slow compared to the European countries and the other countries who are developing on these technologies which are niche for us. But nevertheless, the niche can have a start from a startup, from a minimum point of view, where we can bring up few things to moving out from on-premise to cloud, from looking at from an operating perspective, how the operating cost or my TCO can be taken care on a day one itself. And then slowly and gradually we can move it to the entire TCO. Rather than looking at a big jump of...
So movement on a gradual basis to reach that level. Thank you very much. I think in the interest of time, because I'm told already we are over time, I would like to thank both of you on your effort and your presentation. And there's a few other questions. I think we have answered most of them in one way or another. And if there is anything else, we'll just post the answers in Yammer and in the internet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.